Hello, YouTube. I am Xanthi, and this is about my 75th attempt to record a YouTube video. But here I am, it is 2023, I'm trying for the 76th time. And I thought the first video that I would make would be a little bit of a sit down and get to know me type of video. I've been an avid consumer of YouTube for the last couple of years, and I've always wanted to start a channel. I guess it is the anxiety of starting something from scratch for me that stopped me from doing it. And also, although I've become much better at it through using Instagram, I'm not the most tech savvy person, so the idea of editing this content is kind of intimidating for me. Also, to be completely honest, starting something from scratch with 0 subscribers, 0 viewers, all of that, is just kind of intimidating. I guess that's my ego speaking, but yeah, I feel like I'm going to really enjoy this kind of content and making it and sharing a bit more with you about what I get up to day to day, how I got to where I am so far, and yeah, a little bit more about the highs and lows of what I do, working for yourself, living in the countryside, all of that kind of thing. If you can hear some scratching around, my 2 dogs, Luna and Willow, are in the greenhouse with me. But yeah, I have been living in Wales here for the last 4 years, on and off. I spent some time in London because my fiance Hugo lives there, as do a lot of my family and friends. So I'm on and off in London. I do a lot of supper clubs there, which bring me back as well, work-wise. But I moved to Wales really off the back of like a couple of years of moving to London when I first left university and really not knowing what I was doing and why I was living there. I had a massive passion for being outside and also really wanted to learn to cook and learn to grow my own food. I started my career in food and drinks marketing. And I was living in West London and commuting to the depths of East London every day. And I think one of the things that I just hated was the commute. It sounds so silly, but the depressing side of London is like how grumpy people are. And I felt like I was getting on the tube every single day to just like everyone in their worst moods. And therefore it was making me in a bad mood every day. I was also struggling at the time with really, really bad acne. Those of you who've had acne will know how damaging it can be to your mental health. I've always been quite a confident and outgoing person, and I just felt like I was a shell of myself when I was struggling with acne. And it really just made me very down basically and afraid to socialize, and I think that impacted my levels of happiness at that time massively. And yeah, during that time I was just very inspired by a lot of people who had followed a similar path to the one I'm on now. I was reading a lot of books about sustainable agriculture, I was watching a lot of documentaries, and I just didn't know how to get here. And yeah, I guess the next step is taking that step to what I'm doing now. So yeah, I have been very, very lucky in my life to have parents who would always be very aware of the state that I was in, be it a really good one or a bad one. And also really very lucky to have parents who really wanted me to follow what I wanted to do and what was making me happy. And they were the first ones that really picked up on okay, let's do something, this isn't going well for you. I went home to Scotland, which is where I grew up, with them for 2 weeks, and I just took a time out. Luckily I was on a freelance contract at the time, So I was also close to my boss, so I was able to take 2 weeks to like have a reset. I was just not in a good place. I sat down with my parents and I was like, what am I going to do? I really wanted to go into food, but I didn't want to go into restaurant cooking and I didn't want to go into catering. And at the time I thought those were the only options. So yeah, long story short, in my period of like lowness at that stage, I went back and forth with a lot of ideas, and then I found this course at Ballymaloe Cookery School, which is in Ireland on an organic farm. And up until then, Ballymaloe hadn't been an option because it was very expensive, and also 3 months, which I was a little anxious about because my boyfriend Hugo, who lived in London, I didn't want to be away from him for 3 months. I have dogs. I just was like, don't know what to do. It was a bit long, it was a bit expensive, very expensive. And that just didn't feel like a feasible option for me. But also it was the cookery school that felt the most like, sorry, Willow's rubbing on my chair. Felt the most like in line with what I wanted to do. So I did a little bit of further research, and I actually found a course there that was 6 weeks, so half the time, half the money, and it was focused on sustainable food. So you covered a lot of grounds that I was interested in: growing, visiting farms, getting to know producers, understanding a bit more about how a sustainable farming movement and food movement works. And it was just like, I felt like it was made for me. So I was, signed on in the next 24 hours. And that was a decision made, basically. So that was like one of the best feelings ever, because I just felt for the first time since I'd left university. I went to uni in Edinburgh and studied social anthropology. And yeah, for the first time in like 2 years, I just felt like I had direction and I had clarity of what I wanted to do. So I had about 2 months before I started the cooking course. I knew I didn't want to be in London for that time. So I left London and I moved here to Wales, which is where my family are originally from before they moved to Scotland. So a little bit of a side note, I realise I'm very lucky to have had a family home to come back to, because a lot of people who want to do this move from city to country life do not have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I was very lucky to have the opportunity to come back to a home, to have a roof over my head and to have a space to grow. But I spent about 2 or 3 months, I was starting to cook supper clubs, which started with just like family and friends. I asked them to just cover the cost of the food, and I cooked at home in London. And then I graduated to a cafe, which actually my family ran. So again, I was very lucky to have a space that I could use for free. The cafe was shut in the evening, so I was able to use it then. Had a tiny kitchen, and my best friend Jimmy helped me cook. And we had so much fun, but it was hectic. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was trying to make fresh pasta for 25 people for the first time ever. I've got a sneeze. Yes, anyway. I was living in Wales and I was going to London a bit to see my boyfriend and to see my friends and to do these supper clubs. I had no income at this time between the Ballymaloe course and when I quit my job, so I was really living at home and just trying to save money. And I retook over this beautiful greenhouse, which I'm in right now, which was my grandfather's, who had died a couple of years before. And I basically spent that time clearing out this greenhouse, which had got into quite a bad state, building a little vegetable garden, and really like getting really stuck into books and cooking and all of that. This was also when I started posting on Instagram, for those of you who might be interested to know, as just like not a I'm gonna grow a following, but just as like a hobby kind of thing. which has subsequently grown very slowly over time, and I'm very grateful for that space. But yeah, I just loved posting photos, and it's carried on since then, basically. And then, cut a long story short, I did the course. I absolutely loved it, met some incredible people. I just felt like very, very inspired by the people at Ballymaloe and the space, and like being able to go down to swim in the sea every morning at sunrise. It's just on the coast. I just felt like, apart from anything else, it gave me the understanding that that was a lifestyle that I really wanted to live. I love the cities and what they bring, but I'm really like drawn to the countryside, to understanding what we need in different seasons, to being able to go on a walk when I'm feeling a little bit anxious, to growing my own food. There are just so many reasons why I love it. I'm incredibly lucky to live here. And yeah, so basically, since I left Ballymaloe, I first started working for my family's business, which was very fitting, because it was a food festival, a farm shop and a pub. So it was like all of the stuff that I was already living and breathing. And there was a space for me to help out and give a little input into what I was learning at Ballymaloe and what I was learning through all of my own research. So when I got back, I worked for them part-time, always worked for them part-time so that I could focus on supper clubs, social media and all of that stuff on the side. So I was helping with menu development, I was helping with like sourcing food, so getting more sustainable food producers in. I was looking at growing more of our own food, how to use, we have these beautiful fruit orchards, how to use them more, how to not let any fruit go to waste. On the festival side of things, I was helping to bring in chefs to cook. I was putting on my own events, and that was basically the last 2 years, and it has been amazing, and I've learned so much, and I feel like very, very lucky to have had that experience, and also to have been able to have it so naturally fit into like what I was already doing. And then basically just before last year, everything was just getting a bit much. I was running too many supper clubs and there was just too much to do. I was splitting my time really 50-50 between my family work and my own work, but I felt like I wasn't giving either the opportunity to flourish. So I've pushed my day job, which is for my family's businesses, from 3 days to a day and a half, and then for the rest of the week I will be focusing on my own stuff, which is my recipe development projects, which I will be able to talk about a bit later in the year, supper clubs and all the social media work, as well as starting this YouTube channel. And then on the day and a half I'll be focusing on the businesses which are called the Good Life Society, Harland Farm Shop, Glendy Cabins and Cottages and the Glyn Arms, but mainly I'll be working with the Good Life Society and Glendy Cabins and Cottages to put on food-based events and to help them flourish, basically, as they help me flourish. So yeah, I'm incredibly lucky and grateful. I have had a lot of ups and downs in the last few years, but my work has really helped me find an identity. I'm definitely lost my way for a period last year, in that I got a bit caught up in the whole social media side of things. I think it's really easy to do when you start growing a following. I think you can be like, oh my god, got invited to this, oh my gosh, got sent this, da 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 da. And I felt like I lost my way a little bit with it, worrying about pictures getting likes, worrying about followers going up, all of that stuff. While I had such a good year, I had an amazing year of supper clubs, I pushed myself, I developed so much. I feel like for 2023, my main focus is to really get back to the reasons why I moved here, which is to grow my own food, to be really in touch with the seasons without sounding very cliche and gross, but just to like get back to my roots, And yeah, I'm really, really excited to start this YouTube to take you, maybe 0 followers, I don't know, hopefully we'll get a few people watching. Yeah, to take you along with me while I understand how to do YouTube, while also trying to get back in touch with the reasons why I live here and moved here. Yeah, there's so much that I want to share. I think I really have found in the last few years inspiration through watching people's YouTubes and Instagrams. And I really hope that I can do the same for others who may be struggling with finding their identity, with feeling comfortable in their own skin, with making moves and changes, and all of that stuff. I want this to be as open as possible and to be able to be as honest with you as possible. Yeah, so things that hopefully we will be focusing on, if all goes to plan, are growing, are like days in my life vlogs, I think. Yeah, vlogs. So what I get up to day to day here or week to week, and then just a bit more about living in Wales, a bit more about doing supper clubs, running supper clubs, organising events, organising pop-ups, how I run my Instagram, and yeah, basically I've got a lot of ideas, and I hope you enjoy. If you do watch, I just got cut out there because I had been talking for too long, but yeah, that's basically it. I'm going to stop talking right now, but I hope you enjoy it, and lots of love.